This disturbing CCTV footage captures the moment leading up to the brutal murder of 15-year-old Keelan Wilson by a group of masked men. The savage nature of the killing was so severe that a police officer, with 6 years of experience, stated that he had never witnessed such gruesome injuries. The motive for the murder and the identities of the perpetrators remain unknown. We will delve deeper into the story behind this tragic event that resulted in Keelan Wilson being stabbed 43 times after he switched gangs. Those who knew Keelan Wilson remember him as a kind and caring person who was known for his generosity. Despite his young age, he had ambitious plans for the future and dreamed of becoming an architect. He had a passion for cars and music, and his family had been preparing to take a trip to Egypt before he started college. Keelan and his family lived in an area of Wolverhampton, UK, known as Mary Hill. At approximately 11 p.m. on Tuesday, May 29, 2018, police received a report of a group of boys fighting near Keelan's residence on Langley Road. Upon arrival, they discovered Keelan lying on the ground with multiple stab wounds and immediately transported him to the hospital. Despite the doctor's best efforts, Keelan tragically passed away around midnight. The shocking murder of Keelan devastated the Wolverhampton community, which struggled to comprehend why such a gentle and compassionate young man could be targeted in such a violent manner. His family in particular was heartbroken and demanded that justice be served for their son. A murder investigation was launched promptly, but the case proved to be challenging to crack. At that time, investigators only knew that Keelan and a friend were sitting inside a cab when they were ambushed by a gang of masked teenagers. CCTV footage captured the group fleeing the scene at 11:03 p.m., but low-quality video made it difficult to identify anyone. Several teenagers were detained by the police as part of the inquiry, but they were eventually released without charge. A year passed with no progress made on the case, and Keelan's mother, Kelly Ellis, grew increasingly desperate and frustrated with what she felt was a lack of progress and urgency from the authorities. In November 2019, the police announced that they had arrested 4 men in connection to the gruesome murder that occurred a year and a half earlier. These men, Tyreek King, Zene Pennant Phillips, Nehemi Tampwo, and Brian Sasa, were not previously known to the police. Despite denying involvement in the murder, all 4 were charged in May 2020, 2 years after the death of Keelan. The prosecution presented evidence that suggested that Keelan's murder was gang-related, as he had become involved with the Wolverhampton gang called V3 before switching sides to their rivals, V2. It is believed that the V3 gang members killed Keelan as retribution for changing sides, and that they had planned the attack shortly after a leading member of the V3 gang was released from prison. The group had reportedly gathered in a house before moving together in a taxi to an area where they expected Keelan to be, where they jointly attacked him. The prosecution presented various pieces of evidence, including fingerprints, DNA, CCTV footage, phone records, and witness testimony, including that of Keelan's father, Gary Wilson, who told the jury that one of the suspects, Nehemi Tampwo, had previously been friends with Keelan, but the two had fallen out. Gary testified that Nehemi had sent Keelan some threatening text messages in early 2018, including one that mentioned Keelan's mother and his newborn brother. Keelan was upset and showed Gary the message, saying that Nehemi and his friends might go to Keelan's house and harm his granddad and brother. Gary also recounted a disturbing incident that occurred in February 2018 when he and Keelan were driving around their neighborhood in Gary's van and encountered Nehemi. Keelan got out of the car to talk to Nehemi, but the situation quickly escalated into a confrontation, during which Nehemi pulled out an axe from his bag and demanded that Keelan come around the corner. Gary intervened and managed to take the axe away from Nehemi, but Nehemi's defense lawyer challenged this account and claimed that Keelan had produced a machete and attacked Nehemi. Gary denied this and insisted that it was Nehemi who had the axe. Despite his efforts to prevent tragedy, Gary had no idea of the horror that would later occur. During the trial on May 29, 2018, it was revealed that before Keelan's murder, there had been several violent incidents in the city. The first one happened at a barbershop in the city center where Keelan's friend was attacked by suspected V3 gang members, leading to street violence captured by CCTV cameras. Keelan was dropped off nearby and went to check on his friends. While walking to a friend's house, two men suddenly appeared and chased him, even firing a shot at him, but missing. Later that night, Keelan's car broke down and he and his friend were waiting for a cab when four masked youths walked toward them, calling Keelan's name. One of them shouted in a way that sounded like a war cry, and then they attacked Keelan when he got inside the cab. They stopped the cab, yanked open the back door, and savagely attacked Keelan with various weapons while several witnesses watched. The prosecution stated that the vicious attack lasted only 20 seconds but resulted in Keelan receiving 43 knife wounds. Witnesses described the attack as carried out by a pack and brutally, with one comparing it to piranhas feeding. According to one of the detectives who arrived at the scene, Keelan's murder was particularly gruesome due to the severity of his injuries and the fact that he was only 15 years old. He stated that in his experience, there are few murders with injuries as horrific as Keelan's, making it a standout case. The prosecution noted that Keelan's friend was unharmed and fled the scene, indicating that Keelan was the sole target. The cab driver suffered only a minor cut on his arm. During her testimony in court, Keelan's mother, Kelly, recounted taking him to a barbershop in Bushbury and then to the city center to pick up some parcels. Upon hearing about his friend's attack at another barbershop, Keelan insisted on going to check on him, despite Kelly's objections. Kelly last heard from Keelan around 8:20 p.m. when he texted her to say that his phone battery was low. She was in her bedroom when she saw police lights flashing past her house at around 11 p.m. Despite her neighbor's assurances that it was not her son, Kelly went to investigate, thinking that it might be someone he knew who had been hit by a car. During the trial, the prosecution asked her how she realized that the victim was her son. Kelly responded that she recognized one of Keelan's clothes and immediately knew that he had been severely injured. She went on to recount how she traveled in a separate ambulance to the hospital and received the devastating news that her son had passed away. Kelly tearfully shared that Keelan's last words were, "Tell my mom I love her." Kelly then spoke about the impact of her son's death on her life. She told the court that Keelan was her whole world, and the night he was murdered would haunt her for the rest of her life. Kelly expressed her profound grief, saying, "There's no light at the end of the tunnel. My 15-year-old son is never coming back to me. He will never get the chance to settle down, get married, and have children. Everything was taken away from him. How can I live with that?" Gary, Keelan's father, expressed that he was unable to put into words the emotion he felt about his son's brutal murder. He revealed that he torments himself by reliving the moments when he discovered his son's lifeless body, and it's an image that haunts him every time he closes his eyes. Gary recounted receiving a call from Kelly informing him that Keelan had been stabbed, and the subsequent discovery of several pieces of evidence linking the four suspects to the crime scene and Keelan. Nehemi was found in possession of clothes stained with Keelan's blood the day after his death, while Brian and Zanae's DNA and fingerprints were found on the cab's door handles and windows, which they had ambushed. During the trial, the prosecution presented a rap song found on Nehemi's phone, which contained lyrics that referred to stabbing and killing people and mentioned the name K-Sab, Keelan's nickname. The trial lasted for 13 weeks, and the jury only deliberated for 2 hours before delivering a guilty verdict for all four men. The judge presiding over the case described the murder as a planned execution of a 15-year-old child and noted that the numerous defense wounds on Keelan's body suggested that he had been conscious and suffered during the attack. Brian, Nehemi, and Tariq were sentenced to a minimum of 18 years in prison. while Zaneh received a slightly reduced sentence of 17 years due to his lack of previous convictions. What do you think about this case? Let me know in the comments section, and be sure to like and subscribe for more videos.